how did she gain all of that weight? This person really let themselves go. I guess they really didn't bounce back after the baby. We can be so brutal sometimes, so mean, so harsh to strangers, to people we love, to ourselves even. And today we're gonna have an actual honest conversation about obesity. Is it really a choice? Or what causes it? What contributes to it? How does it happen? And the truth is the answer is not simple. It's not straightforward. But today we're gonna talk about how it happens and how we can start to come out of it. Warning, today is a very big topic, so we're not even gonna scratch the surface, but we are gonna have a very real conversation, and we're gonna talk about the things that everybody is too afraid to get into. You're listening to Healthy Hypocrites. This is the podcast where we get real about the messy intersection between faith, science, and health, but also where we get vulnerable together. I'm your host, Tumi, a follower of Christ, but also a lactation consultant and a dietitian, and I believe that wellness is not about perfection, but instead it's about intention, honesty, and grace. Well, I must be honest about today's topic. I have no personal experience with obesity because I've never been obese, but I have extensive professional experience. And so I can see the effects, how it happens, and the come up, and how people actually really got to that point. And most people, when they find out, they're usually very surprised because it's something that genuinely can just creep up on you. And today, I'm going to challenge your beliefs as a viewer, as someone who has or hasn't been obese, and I'm going to challenge your perspective. But before that, we're gonna break the ice because I'm gonna bring out my favorite thing, the confession jar. I'm going to pull out a question from here based on today's topic because I'm going to be vulnerable, and so should you. So if you're listening right now, I want you to answer this question honestly to yourself. If you're bold, in the comment section. But yeah, let's see what today's question is. Is obesity a choice? Wow, we're getting right into it. So let me be honest, okay? Is obesity a choice? Personally and professionally, from what I've seen, I believe that becoming obese most of the time is not a choice. Usually it happens because of systemic failures, the way that we're raised, the way that we're taught, and the way that we just survive, could be trauma, could be so many things, but just generally it could not be trauma. It could just be the way that you're raised or the way that you know how to eat. So most of the time I find that obesity is not a choice in that regard. It just happens sometimes. But where it does become a choice is where you become aware and know that it may pose a risk to you, and then you can have a choice to say, oh, okay, I'm obese now. Where do I go from here? So yes and no. I'm very conflicted on how to answer that question. But now, before we even get into this topic of how it happens and how does the person even become obese, let's define what obesity is. What does it mean when someone says this person is obese or you're obese or whatever? So obesity is usually typically classified as having a BMI above 30. What is a BMI? BMI is your body mass index. That's your weight in relation to your height. So if I were to put this in perspective for you, because some people can't really gauge, or some people can't really know, some people haven't even done their BMI and things like that. So if you're about 1.65, okay, guys, I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm just trying to give you perspective, okay? So please don't be scared. Don't be worried. Maybe you can go get a health check or something. But essentially, if your height is about 1.65 and you find that your weight is above 85 kgs, you're most likely obese, okay? So don't take this as a diagnosis. Obviously, go get a health checkup. I'm not diagnosing anyone, but I'm just letting you know that that is how we classify it. So on a basic level, how obesity happens is due to a long-term imbalance in the energy coming in your body and the energy going out your body. So it means that you would be more in an energy surplus, in a calorie surplus, unknowingly over years and over a long period of time. And when people hear this, it's like, okay, why don't you just like eat what your body needs? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we can be so insensitive and so harsh sometimes, but it's not something that you see because it happens over time. It happens over years. You know, you don't just gain like 50 kgs in a year. It's something that happens slow over time. It's not something that happens overnight at all. And the very first thing that causes, that causes or contributes to obesity that I want to talk about is how we're taught how to eat. Many of our eating patterns are not necessarily something that we chose, but something that we learned. The way that we grew up usually shapes the way that we eat to this day. I want you to ask yourself a few questions, just for you to reflect on, okay, how was I raised, or how am I being raised if, still getting raised? Ask yourself, in my house, did they cook vegetables? Did we usually do like whole foods, like, like your meats and vegetables and fruits and what? Or did we do like more convenience foods, packaged noodles, Viennas? So, you know what I'm saying? Were we taught how to balance a meal when we grew up? Or were we raised more like on takeaways and fast food? Even exercise is learned. When you were young, did your parents encourage you to play sports and balance it well with academics? Or were your parents on some, no, books only, everything else is a distraction, right? So what kind of environment were you raised around? Did you like grow up seeing your parents be active and run and lift weights and all that? Or is that something that you just never saw your parents doing? And so that's essentially something that you just didn't come accustomed to. And this is something so powerful because it actually allows us to reflect on the patterns that we carry that are helping us, and then the patterns that we carry that are hurting us. And not to blame anyone, but rather just to reflect and see where things started and how they got there. Proverbs 22 verse 6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." And this shows us how powerful it is to show children healthy ways of eating and healthy ways of living, because then they're able to embody those things and carry them over into their adulthood. So if you find that, you've gotten to this place where your weight has, gotten to the obese level, and you are now raising kids, like let's say your kids are still small or young, think about what healthy habits that you can now start to implement in yourself, in your house, that will help train up your child in the way that he should go. It is difficult, but it is a very nice first step that would help change things, not only for you, but for your kids and their kids and their kids as well. The second thing that I want us to open our eyes to as to why or how obesity happens is medical, diagnosis and medications. This is something that no one really talks about, but there are certain medications that actually genuinely cause weight gain because of the way that they affect our appetite and our hormones as well. Some medications are things like your steroids, not like steroids, gym. No, they're actually steroids that actually help to do different things, like some steroids to control acne, other ones to control allergies. Things that these steroids that we take over and over, they actually can influence us in that way. Another thing is antidepressants, antipsychotics. There are a few of medications that we aren't necessarily talking about that can cause weight gain that we need to consider as well. Apart from that, there's also certain medical conditions that cause weight gain. Things like your polycystic ovarian syndrome, things like your hypothyroidism. These are illnesses that affect the metabolism. They can influence our metabolism, our appetite, and the way that we store fat. And so we need to open up our eyes and our heart to think that if someone is in the situation, there are so many other things that could have contributed to this particular situation. So we need to remember that for some people, weight gain is not just a matter of behavior. This person just cannot act well, or this person is just so disorderly or whatever. It can be physiological. So now we ask ourselves, is obesity a choice? Well, the truth is not as simple as that. It always has so many different factors involved. It depends on your family, your environment, your biology, your stress, and your circumstances. But what we do know is that the road to overcoming this starts with the very first decision, very first step. Not the perfect, most greatest step, but just the very first step that will allow you to make progress without shaming and blaming yourself, shaming and blaming your parents, shaming and blaming anyone else, really. So if you're asking yourself, or if you find yourself asking yourself, how did I get here? I want you to remember that the answer is probably much more complicated than that. But we just need to remember, what is the next step? And that way, when we change and we become intentional about it, and we repeat things that are actual, proper, small, actionable steps, we allow ourselves to transform and become greater and overcome it, something that you might have thought that you could never overcome before. Rewrite your story, right? And this is something that I talk about as well in other videos. But today was about grace, understanding, and reflection. You've been listening to Healthy Hypocrites. This is the podcast where we get real about wellness and grace. And I'm Tumi. And until next time, remember that you do not need to be perfect to be at peace. You just need to be present and intentional. And I will see you next week, Tuesday at 6. Bye.